do we value things? In our world prior to COVID, people put values on certain things. They put a value on the ability to be able to travel internationally. That was a high value for a lot of people. People put value upon their property, upon their job, upon the ability to have a complex social life, to be able to go to nice restaurants with friends. That's how some people thought they had their dignity, because they could do those certain things. Some people put value on the fact that they've got a house that's worth X amount of money, or they've got shares that are worth whatever. Over the last few months, we've all had to reconsider how we value things, how we treasure things. And our readings today are trying to get us to think about how we value things and what we really put our priorities in, what we really want to treasure. The last few months have taught me, and they've probably taught all of us as well, that what we might have valued in the past, these might have been sort of good things, but they've also might have been a bit of a distraction from what truly is good. Solomon in the first reading today is asked by God to decide what he truly values. Is it material possession? Is it property? Is it a job? Is it health? And what Solomon says, he wants to have the knowledge of what is good and what is evil. And that's what he values as the most important thing. Being able to work out what is truly of God and what is truly not of God in the world. And making that his priority. And everything else is secondary or even far behind that. And I find that the last few months has really made me reflect about what I value, and it probably should do the same for all of us. This last week we've heard the Treasurer here in this country didn't quite hand down a budget, but he sort of gave a budget update to tell us that things are not in a great shape. The biggest deficit we've ever had in this country's history, and things are not looking good over the next 12 months to 18 months. Job security's not looking good. People's net worth as they were financially, it's not looking good. And then you have the health crisis. People's health hasn't been what it's been. We know the last few weeks things have been getting more severe, especially in Victoria, but even in our own city. So what do we value? Do we put our value in our net financial worth? Is that what we're really about? Do we put our net worth in our job security, or the ability for us to be able to have a complex social life? Or is there something greater about who we are? And Jesus tells us that there is something that we search for. We're searching for meaning that will last beyond a pandemic, beyond a crisis, that will last during a recession or a depression. Something that we search for, and that when we find it, we're willing to give up everything to have this treasure. As a child, I used to like to read books about treasure hunts. I know there's a number of TV shows about treasure hunts as well, or amazing races where people have journeyed around the world looking for things of great value. But I think for us, especially for myself, what I value most is the love of God, of being close to God and searching what is truly good of God. That's what Solomon did in the first reading, and that's what we should be willing to give up everything for. If we've got things right with God, if we're searching out what is good in today, what's happening that's good is of God in our experience of life today, then all those other things really become trivial. Whether our share portfolio or our superannuation or our retirement fund is worth more or less than it was yesterday, those things are important because they help us to be able to feed at times. But they're not really who we are. What we're really about is about the goodness of God. So I encourage you today, those who are here in the church, but also those at home, to really be aware of what is of God around you today. Treasure what's around you. Don't just take it for granted. We have an ability to be able to speak, to breathe, to exist today. That's a good. We have the ability to be able to pray. That's a good as well. We can pick up the phone and interact with people here, but also right across the world. That's a good. That's a great thing. We can interact with God through prayer. We can experience God out in the world in lots of different ways. Cherish that. Treasure that today. Don't just take it for granted. There are so many goods that are happening. We can become very focused on all the tragedy, the pandemic, the crisis that's happening. Or we can say, there is good that's going on here as well. Let's treasure the good. Let's not allow the pandemic to create a mental health disaster and a spiritual disaster for us all. It's interesting, in times gone past, when there have been pandemics and when there have also been financial crises, especially during the time of depression, people realised what life was really about. It's not about all those other externals. It's about the heart. It's about why we've been created, and we have been created for goodness. Today, let us recommit to being people of goodness, to being people of God in our world. We often refer that to being saints. That's the more sort of the Catholic term that we've referred to it in the past. Let's recommit to being people of goodness, recommit to being saints for this moment in history.